Hey, so today I'm talking about negative self-talk. Now, we know about that, we've heard about that, but what most people don't realize is that negative self-talk is actually self-bullying. So I want to dive into why that is the case and what's going on the inside that's really probably stopping you from feeling really good in your own life and maybe even from accomplishing some of the things that you want to have in life. So I'm going to dive all the way into that, and I'm going to give you 3 steps you can take today to start changing that dynamic inside your brain. So for those of you who are new here, I'm Ketra Thompson, and I'm a certified master hypnotist and a life recovery coach. So what I do is I help my clients go back on a subconscious level and reframe these old core limiting beliefs that are really running your life so that you can have a new frame of reference and actually create a huge amount of momentum in a short amount of time. So if you'd like to learn more, check out the link in the description below. You can check out my website where all the info is there. And you can also set up a completely free complimentary consultation call so that we can talk about what you're dealing with and going through, and I can make my best recommendation for you. So that's all there, and you can check that out. So before I jump all the way in, I do want to remind you to please click like and subscribe to notifications so that you can be notified every time I post a new video. So negative self-talk is one of those things that's really sneaky. Like, there's a lot of us that don't even know that it's happening because it's been happening forever. It's been the mental dialogue that our brain has had most of our life. And so because of that, it doesn't feel weird. It doesn't feel foreign or out of place or like something we need to push against. And that's part of the problem. We need to have some awareness. So negative self-talk really is mental bullying. You're kind of talking crap to yourself on the inside. And the problem is the way we think about ourselves and talk to ourselves is actually the way that we judge others in the world. So the most judgmental people are typically the ones that are very, very hard on themselves and judgmental to themselves. And so if we're going to stop controlling things outside of us and stop judging others, it actually starts inside of us. This actually plays out in several ways. I'm not talking about not using the wisdom that you need to use to make a judgment call for your safety, for your well-being, for your emotional safety. We all want to use the wisdom we have to make judgments about whether we should be in a certain place or continue in a certain relationship. So that's not really what I'm talking about. We need to use that wisdom in a good way, but we also want to address this inner dialogue, this bully. It's like this little drill sergeant telling us what we have to do. Like, if we don't kick our own ass, we're not going to get anything done. And that's probably the biggest problem with this dynamic, is the belief that we have to bully ourselves into action. So when we're bullying ourselves, it's because we have not accepted the shadow side of us. That's the side of us that we want to look away from, that we want to minimize, that we don't want others to see. And it's the same concept as the labels that we put on people. We put these generalized labels on others, and it's because we think if we embrace this shadow side of ourselves, then we will have that label too. And that fear is what keeps us bullying ourselves or suppressing that part of ourselves. So for example, we've got labels in the world like the virgin and the whore. Okay, 2 very opposite ends of that spectrum, right? Where that comes from is the label that the whore, someone, connected to their sexuality and their sexual desire, can't possibly be the innocent virgin as well. And it's simply not true. Like, we are all really complex humans, and we have these different sides of ourselves, which is actually what makes life really amazing, when we can fully embrace all these sides of ourselves in a way that feels like we're in integrity with who we want to be. But when we're shunning that part of ourselves, when we're shunning a specific desire and not getting curious about what that means, then we're creating shame and we're creating more guilt. And so we can't accept that part of ourselves. So for example, let's just say, this is really specific, but let's say a man is really focused on how a woman should be super virtuous and she should be, innocent, and she should be the virgin-like person for him to be with. And then he's really mad if she isn't everything he wants sexually. And he isn't actually embracing both of those sides, either of himself or of her. And so there's this judgment that even if you don't say it, it's felt energetically. This happens on so many levels that aren't quite as specific as that. But when we are harsh on ourselves about something, we tend to project out that harshness onto someone else. And we're also trying to control so that we don't look bad, so that we don't end up with a label that we've deemed unacceptable. But doing our shadow work involves accepting those parts of ourselves, accepting all of ourselves, accepting that we are human, that we're allowed to be human. And in our humanity, that means that we grow, that we change, that we evolve, hopefully, because if we don't, we're very stagnant. And this is what you see in a lot of people who don't embrace growth. They stay stuck in a child or teenage mentality. They stay fragmented inside of themselves, unable to embrace all of themselves or other people. And it creates a lot of fears and anxieties and avoidance, especially inside the dynamic of a relationship. So when we avoid vulnerability, that's what's actually keeping us wearing the mask, the pretend mask of who we want everyone else to think we are, but it's not our authentic self because we haven't gotten real with ourselves. And we're bullying ourselves into doing it. And so we think that we're pretending for the world and that everyone else has this great image of us. But the reality is that most people can see through it, even if they don't know what it is. Even if they are just not sure about what's off with someone, they just know something's off, right? This happens in the narcissistic dynamic a lot. So when you're looking at a closet narcissist or this covert narcissist, they kind of look like they've presented a good image to the world, but they actually don't usually have a lot of friends. They don't have a lot of people who want to hang out with them. They bribe people to hang out with them with their money or their influence or their toys or whatever, because people can feel like something's just not right with this person. And it's because they're wearing a mask. And they are highly critical of how the world sees them, critical of themselves, critical of others. Now, everyone who has this issue of being highly critical of themselves doesn't necessarily have that manifest out into them being narcissistic, but it's one of the examples of how this plays out and how we think we're actually creating a dynamic where we can be more accepted, but in reality, we're actually repelling people. So just think about it like this, like your brain doesn't like a bully. And if someone told you when you were young, you have to do this way right now, didn't give you any choice around any of it, the last thing you want to do is exactly that thing, because you didn't have any say in it, you didn't have any choice in it, you didn't get to, have autonomy. So when we're doing that to ourselves, we're actually working against ourselves because we're creating inner rebellion because we aren't giving ourselves a choice. We aren't taking the time to tune in to what we need, want, and desire. We're just bullying ourselves into doing something. And it doesn't work very well. It actually can cause a lot of internal struggle and issues, creating more fear and anxiety. So the thing is, you can make some actual steps and progress in this on your own. And I'm going to give you those 3 ways to do that. But I do want to mention that the most rapid way that you can change the way you see yourself is in a custom hypnotherapy process. And here's why. When we are young, really the first 7 years of life, we're walking around in hypnosis in the theta brainwave state. So we are taking in all of the information that's coming into us, everything people say and do to us. We're assigning meaning to it, and then we're using that meaning to write a blueprint in our subconscious mind. And our subconscious mind drives over 95% of everything we think, feel, and do. But here's the deal. The critical factor, this comparing mechanism that gets put in place around age 7, locks down your subconscious mind, believing that everything in there is accurate and doesn't give you access to it, except for a few exceptions with trauma, complex trauma, some repetition through complex trauma. And the other way you have access is in hypnosis. So you're trying to make these changes using willpower that can't get through this gatekeeper of your mind, and it's getting exhausted and wearing out. And at some point, you reach capacity where you just are exhausted. You've tried all these coping mechanisms. You've tried to deal with this by letting your fear run the show and wearing the mask and avoiding people and situations. And the whole thing has become so exhausting that you reach this point where you don't know what else to do. This happens in the midlife crisis a lot, where people do these extreme things because they're just at capacity instead of realizing that they can actually shift that. So in hypnosis, we can go back to where you created that belief so that you can reframe it and have a new operating system. Because battling against yourself when your subconscious mind is this powerful can feel really frustrating. So that's the most rapid way that you can create change in your life, and you can create the ability to let go of control of the people around you, the things around you, so that you can actually be assertive in your own life, sharing your wants, needs, and desires, stepping into your vulnerability, and creating not only connections that you want, but the life success that you want as well. Because people can feel when you're in integrity and when you're not. But if that isn't where you're at right now and you're not ready to invest that way into yourself, then I would recommend you take the next 3 steps to really help you start going down this new path. So the first thing you can do is start noticing your thoughts. Slow it down. Start noticing what you're thinking about yourself when you look in the mirror, when you make a mistake, when you're making choices for your day, and start noticing what that narrative is. If that narrative is, I'm so stupid, I can't believe I did that. Why didn't I pick up on that? I should have known better. It's any of this self-bullying, then I want you to slow that down and say, can I be 100% certain that this is accurate, what I'm telling myself? Or is it possible that I'm human and I'm allowed to be human and I'm allowed to be imperfectly perfect, and it's okay that people learn more from their mistakes than they do their successes, and just being compassionate toward yourself. So you want to notice those thoughts and you want to step into that compassion for yourself, which is really the step 2 is I'm allowed to be human. Remind yourself of that. I'm allowed to be human. I'm allowed to make mistakes. And the more you do this, the more you'll soften the approach that you have toward yourself and other people. And really the 3rd step is to start being assertive. Now, some people think assertive is mean and abrupt and harsh, but it's not. It's calm and centered and it's clear. So when you're dialed into what's going on inside of you, now you're going to be able to step into that and share with the people in your life what you want, what you need, what you desire, whether they can meet that need or not. It's about communicating where you are and being open and vulnerable so that you're no longer hiding who you really are. That's what vulnerability really is. It's allowing the world to see that you're imperfectly perfect, that you're human, and that you're okay with that. So notice those thoughts, slow it down, and give yourself that reality check. Remind yourself that you're allowed to be human. And start being assertive by making decisions about what you want, you need, what you desire, even if it's as small as what restaurant you would prefer to go to when someone's making a decision with you. Really ask yourself, what would I choose if it was just me? And start stepping into that assertiveness that allows you to start shedding that mask. And when we step toward these things we fear, it's actually the path to our best life. It's actually the path to overcoming those fears and those doubts and the things that are holding us back from being authentic with ourselves and with others. Again, of course, I'm going to recommend that hypnotherapy is the most rapid way to get there. So if you'd like to learn more about that, set up that consultation call. That link is down in the description. It doesn't cost you anything, but you will walk away with a ton of clarity, with so much insight, with so much understanding, and really having a clear game plan for the direction that you want to move in. So until next time, I hope you curate a life by your own design.